As a marketing director at a multinational company, I thought I'd be pretty happy with the job. I had a pretty impressive career path. By the time I was 35, I had already achieved what many spend their entire lives chasing. I had a great office with a view of the city skyline, a team of dedicated professionals working with me, and recognition that went beyond just our industry. I had a great husband, David, who was a successful surgeon, and a beautiful Georgian-style home in the suburbs that most people would consider a dream come true. But there was still something missing. It felt like everything was on hold. David was always at the hospital saving lives, while our relationship had lost some steam. We were discussing more practical matters, such as household arrangements and calendar coordination. "Can you make sure you're home for dinner?" It became our most intimate exchange, usually answered with a brief "surgery running late" text. I felt lonely all the time, wondering if I was just going through the motions or actually living my life. I found myself looking at my reflection in the office windows, wondering when I had become this empty version of myself. It was a sultry summer night when everything changed. After another quiet dinner on my own, I decided to take a walk in the lakeside park on the outskirts of the city. The area was known for its hiking trails and beaches, which were a hidden gem that few city dwellers explored after dark. The lake looked amazing under the moonlight, with just the odd fish jumping and the wind gently stirring the surface. I took off my heels and felt like I wanted to connect with something real, something primal. The sand was warm from the sun and felt great between my toes. As the breeze caressed my body, I had a crazy thought. What if I just let go of all the rules and completely free myself? The idea was both a little scary and a lot exciting. Before I knew it, I had taken off my designer dress and left it folded on a nearby rock. That moment was pretty indescribable. It was a combination of fear, excitement, shame, and freedom. The warm air felt great on my bare skin. It was the first time in years that I felt truly alive. The corporate mask I wore every day and the perfect wife persona I kept up vanished under the moonlight. I waded into the lake, and the water felt like a silk embrace against my naked body. I was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. It was a combination of feeling relieved, free, and like I was rediscovering myself. From that day on, I started looking online for naturist communities. I was just curious at first, but then I found a whole community of people who found freedom in nature and celebrated the human form without sexualizing it. After spending weeks looking through online forums, I finally responded to a post looking for models for an artistic nature photography series. The portfolio that was attached to the post caught my eye right away. Each photo told a story of freedom and connection with nature, showing that nudity can be pure art. The photographer was Max. We met up at sunrise by the lake, where I'd first experienced freedom. I got there just as the sun was painting the sky in pink and gold. The lake was completely calm, with the sky reflected perfectly on its surface. The morning air was cool against my skin, carrying the scent of dew-covered grass and wildflowers. Max showed up with his professional photography gear. He was in his early 40s, had kind eyes, and had an artistic, somewhat disheveled look that seemed at odds with the corporate world. "The light is just right," he said, setting up his tripod. "The mist creates a natural veil, which adds a bit of mystery to every frame." His straightforward approach and artistic vision put me at ease. He talked about angles and lighting, how the morning light would catch the water droplets on my skin, turning them into diamonds. He had a calm, confident voice as he showed me the poses to do, which felt natural and relaxed. "Just relax your shoulders," he said, adjusting his lens. "Imagine you're part of the landscape, as natural as the trees, as fluid as the water." The morning breeze gave my skin a little nudge, raising goosebumps that he called texture. I found his approach to using the camera really interesting. It was as if he was engaged in a dialogue with the subject, rather than simply capturing images. Our photography sessions became a regular thing, with each one pushing the boundaries of artistic expression further. Max's converted warehouse studio with its huge windows and exposed brick walls became a kind of sanctuary where I could not only shed my clothes, but also the weight of societal expectations. As we got to know each other better, his photography style also evolved. He started to capture more than just the physical form. He also captured something more fleeting, the liberation of spirit. We started meeting regularly at first as part of an artistic collaboration. We had some great conversations, easily moving from art to philosophy, from personal fears to secret dreams. He got where I was coming from on the subject of marriage. He'd been through a divorce himself and learned that emotional connection is more important than social conventions. It felt great to be understood again. I'd been missing that with David for a while. The turning point came on a rainy afternoon in late September. The storm had been brewing all day, with dark clouds gathering like spectators to our private drama. I'd gone to his studio to talk about our next photo series, as planned. The rain started beating down on the big windows with the intensity that matched my hidden desires. The power went out without warning, and the studio was suddenly plunged into a strange twilight. The rain was like a soundtrack, with the storm's gray light filtering through the industrial windows, casting moving shadows across the studio floor. The temperature seemed to drop, but I felt a strange warmth spreading through my body. The studio, which is usually so big and open, suddenly felt cozy and intimate. The combination of chemicals and rain aromas created a great atmosphere. I could hear Max breathing a little unevenly, in sync with my own quickening rhythm. It felt like the distance between us was shrinking with each thunderclap. "The lighting is spot on," he said quietly. His photographer's instinct kicked in. His hands were a little shaky as he reached for his camera, but then he paused. He put the camera down on his side, as if he'd forgotten about it. There was a definite feeling of unease between us. I could tell he was there, even though he was close by. The silk of my blouse felt a bit tight and synthetic against my burning skin. I could feel my pulse in my throat with each heartbeat, like a drum beating against the silence between thunder rolls. My fingers twitched, twisting the fabric of my skirt and making a soft rustling that seemed louder than it should have been in the charged atmosphere. We stood by the window, watching the rain turn the city into an impressionist painting. The cool glass against my palm gave me a sense of stability, but when Max's hand covered mine, that anchor was lost. The heat of his palm against my skin sent shivers down my spine, even as I felt a warmth begin to build inside me. It felt like an eternity, with each moment lasting an excruciatingly long time. The storm outside got worse, matching the chaos in my mind. My ability to think clearly started to falter, like old photos that have been left in the sun for too long. My wedding ring felt like a lot of responsibility, but also a bit like I was going to pass out. When he finally turned me toward him, it felt as natural as the tide turning. His fingers traced the curve of my shoulder, leaving a trail of warmth in their wake. I was so caught up in the moment that I forgot to breathe as he found the small of my back with his other hand and drew me closer. The fabric of his shirt felt cool and refreshing against my flushed cheeks. The first kiss was light and cautious, like testing the temperature of water with your toe. Then, right on cue, there was a thunderclap directly overhead, and we both knew something had changed. The carefully maintained distance between us came crashing down, like a sandcastle in the tide. His hands were tangled in my hair as mine were gripping his shoulders, searching for stability in a world that suddenly felt like it was spinning off its axis. The rain kept up a steady rhythm against the windows, matching the rise and fall of our breathing. The shadows in the studio deepened, creating cozy pockets of darkness where our silhouettes merged and separated like dancers in a passionate performance. Time seemed to lose all meaning. The world outside didn't seem to matter much anymore. All that was left was the sound of rain, the warmth of skin, and the taste of promises that were meant to be kept. As the storm gradually died down, we started to see what wasn't quite right with our ideal scenario. The emergency lights came back on, casting a bright, unwelcoming glow. We slowly broke away from each other, like waking from a dream neither of us wanted to end. My clothes felt strange against my sensitized skin. It was as if they belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The drive home that evening was pretty surreal. The city lights blurred through my rain-streaked windshield, and each traffic signal was a reminder of the choices I'd have to make. I got a text from David, "I'm heading home early tonight. I miss you." The words hit me like a physical blow, and I felt guilty. When I got home, I found David in his study, surrounded by travel brochures. He looked up with an expression I hadn't seen in years, a mix of excitement and nervousness. I wanted to catch you off guard, but I can't wait any longer. He pulled out 2 first-class tickets to Bali. I've taken 3 weeks off. I know I've been a bit distant recently, but I want to make things right. My hands were shaking as I held the tickets. He remembered not just my birthday, but also my dream destination, which I'd mentioned years ago. While I was spending time with Max, David was planning to rebuild our connection. It was a harsh irony. I've got class tickets to Bali scheduled for my upcoming birthday. I've taken 3 weeks off. It's the first time in 5 years. I know I've been a bit distant recently, but I want to make things right. My hands were shaking as I held the tickets. He remembered not just my birthday, but also my dream destination, which I'd mentioned years ago. While I was spending time with Max, David was planning to rebuild our connection. It was a harsh irony. That night, I lay beside my sleeping husband, looking up at the ceiling fan above our bed. The slow movement matched the rhythm of my thoughts. It was nice having David's body next to mine, but it also felt a little strange. His regular breathing, which used to be a comfort, now seemed to highlight the chaos in my mind. The next morning, I called in sick to work, which I hadn't done in years. I drove to our lake, the same one where Max had taken my first photo. The early morning mist hung low over the water, which gave me some privacy to think. I sat there for a while, watching the sun climb higher, thinking about things like the difference between desire and commitment, passion and loyalty, and art and reality. I got a few messages from Max, from work, and from David. I didn't get back to them. I needed to make this decision with a clear head, not in a fog. The water lapped at the shore in a steady rhythm, like a metronome keeping time with my thoughts. As the sun reached its highest point in the sky, I found myself thinking about the different types of love. I felt a strong, all-consuming passion for Max, but I also felt a steady, enduring warmth in my life with David. One promised excitement and artistic fulfillment, while the other offered depth and shared history. They were both real and valid, but they couldn't coexist. I thought about the woman I was in Max's photos, free, wild, uninhibited. Then I thought about the woman I was with David. She was successful, well-regarded, and confident. Maybe the truth was that I was both of these women and neither. Maybe the real journey wasn't about choosing between these versions of myself, but about integrating them. I got up, gave my clothes a quick once-over, and took out my phone. I sent David a quick note, looking forward to Bali. We have a lot to catch up on. Then I sent Max a longer note. It was a bit more challenging to write, but I knew it was important. I thanked him for helping me rediscover myself and for showing me beauty in unexpected places. I also let him know that it was time for us to move on from our professional relationship. The next few months were a bit of a balancing act, with a lot of rebuilding and rediscovery. David and I started therapy to learn to communicate better at work. I kept one of Max's photos. It was the most abstract one, where my form was barely distinguishable from the morning mist over the lake. It now hangs in my home office as a reminder not of what I almost lost, but of what I found, the courage to face myself honestly and choose my path consciously. Sometimes, on early mornings, I still go to the lake by myself. I watch the sun rise and think about how love and photography aren't about capturing the perfect moment. They're about seeing the beauty in the imperfect moments. The woman who first removed her clothes in the moonlight is still here. She's learned to find a good balance between freedom and commitment, passion and peace. I heard that Max has relocated to Paris for a major exhibition. His work explores the connection between nature and the human body. Each photo tells a story about change and truth. Sometimes I see his name in art magazines and feel a mix of gratitude and sadness for our brief meeting. I've managed to keep the artist's spirit alive within the framework of my chosen life. David and I have become closer because we've been open with each other and have put in the effort. We've learned that love isn't just about grand gestures or passionate encounters. It's about making a daily choice to be with each other, appreciating the beauty in the everyday, and finding freedom in commitment. And sometimes when it's raining outside, I can hear it on our bedroom window. I think back to that stormy afternoon in the studio. I don't regret it, though. I'm thankful that I was able to gain some valuable insights from that challenging moment.